Hello, and it is catch-up time again, and what a weird month it has been. So we're in, what are we on now? Middle-ish of May. Are we middle-ish of May? Yeah, middle-ish of May. We haven't even had a spring or anything yet. It has been so weird with a horrible easterly all the time. It's been really cold, and the fishing everywhere has been, it's just been horrible. It's been really weird, really, really moody. What are you doing?
There you go, mate.
Thank you, mate. That was very subtle. Anyway, now my T-boy's been. What we'll get on to is a catch-up of what we've been doing. And we're going to go back. I think last one I caught up on was Woodland's Golden Reel. So we're going to go straight after that. And I'm going to talk about my first round of the Super Cup knockout, which I had. I had that against a chap called James Tattensraw. And I was spawny as always, and I drew home, so I got to take him to Ehrenbrook, which is quite a nice one for me. I very, very rarely these days get to fish an open match at Ehrenbrook just through being that busy, so it was very nice to go back there. As with everywhere, it had been moody and peggy as it's just dead weird. Every venue seems to be. There's good pegs that are real, the way it's changing a bit now. There have been good pegs that are really, really, really good, and there seems to be lots of fish to be caught. But on the average and poorer areas, it has really been a struggle. So hopefully we're past that now, but it was like that when I was at Ehrenbrook. The day before, it had been right moody. I think where I ended up drawing, I drew 10 on match lake. 10 on match lake, which is all peg 3. Yeah, I did. I think it's 10. All peg 3 on match lake I've drawn. And the day before, they'd had a pairs match on there, and it'd been really hard. I think Rumble had been on my peg. Adam Rumble, he'd had 50 odd pound, and there was a 30. So it was fishing typically the same as everywhere else. So it's really, really tricky. And James, who I drew against, drew on 37 on Medda, which I nearly fancied because the fish had been on that bend on 34, so I was flapping all day. But I ended up having a really, really nice day. It's weird how things can change just over the course of the night. There wasn't too much of a frost that night, so I ended up getting a few bites. I had a nice day fishing. I caught a lot of fish long. I was really patient fishing long in like 7 foot on pellets, cupping everything, trying not to feed anything with a catty because that was messing everything up. And I just ticked over all day, catching like little stockies and odd little carp. I had 2 carp on a waggler mid-match, just chucking to the far bank, not feeding anything. I had 2 bites on that. And I had a lovely, lovely finish on meat short, which was really, really patient and nice, just sitting there waiting. You get an odd little bubble to let you know there's fish there, and you get a bite, and you catch these great big F1s late on. So it was a lovely finish. I ended up that one with 121 pound, which were, so it's a 6-hour match, so it sounds a lot, but it was a very steady, nice jobby. And that was third in the match, and that luckily got me through to the next round, that was the target on the day. From there, it was back on the qualifying head-on to try and find try and get a place in the final. And I went next to Tunnelbound Farm, which was it was a Wednesday one. It was freezing. It was dead windy, if I remember. Yeah, it was really weird, really windy, easterly wind. It wasn't very nice at all. And I drew a peg that I sulked like mad about. I drew peg 50 on high, which I've never been on that area before, and it's a very, very good winter area. 49, 48, 47, I'd be really happy to be on them. And 50, I've just never seen it do any good, and I thought, oh, I was proper sulking, because it's a good old drive, it's 2.5 hours to tunnel, and I thought, flipping heck. I wasn't happy. When I got there, I was actually quite happy. It wasn't anywhere near as much in the corner as I felt it was. I had an island to fish to that they built up, so I was able to just reach that with the full length of my pole. Not that it became an option because of the wind, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I actually had a bit of space, and I thought, yeah, this is all right. The wind were blowing away. The wind was like over my left shoulder, blowing up to the far corner, so I didn't fancy it for a win, but it was going to be a nice day's fishing. And looking back, I actually had a chance. I've ended up with 88 pounds just by fishing short all day. I've sat there with meat, and I've had 20 carp, which is really, really weird for tunnel. A few F1s, but every time I could get across when the wind allowed me to, I had some bites. I mean, there are a lot of fish. I've got the island to myself sort of thing. 2's coming that way to the island, but I can have all the backside of the island, which no one sort of fishes to. So I really fancied it, and there were a lot of fish there, and I definitely made a mistake not setting a rod up, which sounds daft at tunnel, because it's not, I've never seen a match won on a rod at tunnel, but I think I'd have caught some fish on it. I mean, on the day, Jordan's won with 144, I'm going to say, 140 something. Jordan Holloway's won off extension. I'm not saying I'd have had that, but I'd have had 100 odd. I mean, if I'd have set a rod up, but I was lazy. So a chance, but I managed to win the lake. I won the lake with 88 pound with, say, proper carp on meat short. So a very nice one, and that got me confidence up a little bit, because that was the first time I think I've weighed in about 4 matches in fish show qualifiers. So that was a nice one to do. From there, I think the next one up, what was the next one I did after that, was Lakeview. And again, Lakeview was a right weird one. It's the moodiest venue I have ever been to, Lakeview, and the fish just, I don't really like eating bait. You know what I mean? There's lots in there, you see them swimming everywhere, they're so hard to catch, it's so moody. But I've drawn on that one 27 I'm going to go for, on Reef Lake, which, looking at results, Reef always seems to win whenever there's a qualifier on. So I was like, right Lake, and I was MPEG. So I thought, do you know what I mean? Job done, I'm going to win this one. And I got there and it looked phenomenal. I mean, I had this lovely MPEG with a lovely reed line margin up the car park end of the lake. But unfortunately, there was officially nothing there. I've ended up with 7 F1s and just not caught anything all day. Because it just seems there's a big group of carp on that one. And they all live up the top end from like 13 to 8. I think Simon Skelton drew 10. Yeah, Simon Skelton drew 10, got job done, right? I think he dobbed £77 a carp, but a really tricky qualifier that a lot of people struggled, and so me and Rich both drew together and we're both home pretty much before the final whistle at the end of the day. So one to forget, unfortunately. From that one, things got good in that I went to Western Pools. So we had a fish show qualifier at Western Pools, and again, it was still weird. In fact, it was really weird still. It'd been fishing really poor. They'd had a weight master festival on, and the 2 days leading up to it, the Thursday, Friday, and that had been on the Clay Pit, Canal, Stretton and Belve. I think 119 was the best weight out of them 2 days. Rob Swan on Stretton on the first day. The second day, only £90 had won the match, which for Western standards just showed how horrible and cold and rubbish the weather had been leading up to it. And the fish were definitely not, they were not responding to bait, because they'd had a bit of bait and a very small percentage of fish are feeding, with it being so cold overnight. So we didn't know where we wanted. I mean, I wanted to draw on probably Jacks or Weird, had been my shout, but only because it was the unknown. And that's where we fancy, because we saw the other ones a bit poor, but I didn't get it. I drew 36 on the Clay Pit, which is a weird peg. I really weren't happy, because it had £30 off it, and Rob Swan had been off it the day before and had £56 in the festival. So I thought, I'm not going to catch a winning weight off there. But it's a peg I've always wanted to go on, because it's a different one. On the Clay Pit, the Clay Pit's notoriously deep. It's like 40, 50, 60 foot deep. And this one's, it's in, as you come down to the Clay Pit, it's on the first corner, not as soon as you come in, but if you keep on going down, there's a corner that bends round where the bottom car park is, and it's the first peg in there, and it's the shallowest peg on the Clay Pit, where you've got sort of, if you imagine it's a quarry that carries on going the Clay Pit, and being in a corner, I've pretty much got a constant slope that just keeps going and going and going and going. It probably goes half a foot every foot that you move. It really does go steep. But I've had a fishable depth. I mean, I've been able to have 6 foot at 6 metres, which sounds normal, but for Clay Pit standards, it isn't. That's really, really shallow and comfortable. So I had that short, and then at 14 metres, I've had, I could pretty much choose whatever depth I wanted, but I was able to have 10 foot right in front of me, like I'm going to say 9 foot right in front of me, which is a very, very comfortable depth of fishing on there, because it goes to 40, 50, 60, who knows what it goes to. It just goes. It just keeps going and going and going. So I had a nice spot where I thought, yeah, 9, 10 foot, a fishable depth that you can do things in. You can control the fish, and the fish are likely to be in that sort of depth, because they're definitely not on the bottom when it comes to the abyss, and they don't want to come in shallow water. And fishing-wise, dead simple. Yeah, I've had them 2 lines. I've had a margin line that nothing happened. I never had a bite in the edge. I had a lovely start. I've caught £15 short. Yeah, I'm going to say £15 short in the first 40 minutes, and things were happening. I thought, this is all right, this. I was a few F1s feeding, an odd little cap, but yeah, fish are feeding. And I've been pinging my long line all the time, but I've been feeding it quite aggressively and heavy, because I've fished on the Clay Pit quite a bit, and with it being a big, open, deep expanse of water, there's no place for tapping in 2 or 3 pellets and being all delicate. You've got to make noise, and you've got to make sure some bait gets to the bottom. So I've bought 2 bags of fishery pellets, 4 mils, and that is all I've fed all day. I've probably fed 2 lots of 30 with my catapult twice every single cast, and before I've gone on it on this long line, just to get some fish in my peg and some fish on the bottom. Because when I first got on it, it was steady. I was catching an odd un. I was getting loads of liners. I thought, flipping it, these F1s are shallow. But regrettably, I didn't have a go shallow for them. But I'm not going to say regrettably, because within half an hour, all the indications stopped. So it's as if a few F1s that we're feeding raced in, we caught a few, a couple of little stockies and that, they were being a pain, but then the lake completely changed and all the F1s stopped feeding. And then it became a very patient, sit there and wait, and when you got a bite, it'd be a proper fish. I mean, I've ended the day with 20 carp and a handful of little F1s, but it's a very patient, slow day. But these carp, the way they fight in Western, so I've lost 5, and the way you lose them, I've lost a couple that have just pulled off at the neck because you're playing them. It's quite awkward playing a carp with 10 foot of line and an elastic and trees above your head. But 3 or 4 of them you've hooked, and because you've got this slope, you hook them and they literally go straight down and keep on going and going down the slope, and they physically pull your pole under the water and rip the lot off. I mean, I've had 2 take my whole rig on, and that's with 090 mainline to an 015 up length, and they just carry on going and going and going, and there's nothing you can do because they bottom out. So playing them is very tricky, not a pleasant affair. It's not like playing F1s that come in, you can pop them up, net them. They're horrible, but it's all about taking your time and not losing it. I mean, just being patient, making sure you land these fish, because they're all, they were probably 4 to 7 pound, the ones I was catching. And fortunately, it was enough on the day as well. I had 98 pound, which that got me my 10th consecutive final, which was that was my big target for this year, was to make it a decade of qualification. So I'm all happy about that. And the complex itself fished really, really hard. Say Alan Scotton was second with 76 pounds, so I had a comfortable day. It wasn't too much flapping about anyone beating me, but yeah, Western was a very tricky one, and luckily it got me that place in Fisher, which was this year's target. But with that done, we still had a little bit more to do, and the next day I went to Woodlands Thirsk for the Golden Reel qualifier, which I enjoyed that when they were rich a few weeks before. And although it seems a little peggy on the qualifiers, you do have to be on an end by the looks of it, in particularly an end on Partridge Lake. It was good. There was some fish to be caught everywhere, and there were quite a few. There's 4 ends on each lake, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ends. We've got 20 end pegs potentially. Is that right? If that's right, I did that very quick. Who knows? But yeah, something like that. It is, isn't it? 20 times 5, 4. All good, 20 end pegs. So there were lots of pegs. 20 out of, I think there were 90 on the match. That's good odds at giving you a chance at getting on an end. And because the drawing arm was well and truly back on form, I went in and got one. Of course I did. And I actually got one that was being mentioned. It was a potential winner. I drew peg 10 on Wagtail, which is one of the back lakes at the top, which is normally home to a bigger stamp of fish. I mean, it's normally where they catch these big old gnarly, ghosty, lovely ones that I've seen quite a few times up there. So I really fancied it. And say at Woodlands, if you've not been there, they're just square lakes, and you have banks, no pegs on the sides, if you like, and just you're facing each other, 2 rows of pegs. And on the end pegs, so I've got this lovely big margin to fish to, which is very, very, very undercut. And because of that, it's home to all the little carp in the lake and a lot of the big carp in the lake. It's the only sort of feature on the whole lake, if you like, these edges. And there were definitely a lot of carp all the way along my bank. They were topping all day. There was just a lot of fish there. But it didn't really go my way, that one. I mean, I had a nice day. I mean, I fished pellets on 2 lines. I've tried to throw a method, but I couldn't, but we'll talk about that in a second. And I've just ticked over. I've had 28 little carp, sort of 2 to 7 pound, if you like, for 107 pound, which won the lake, miles behind winning. But say a nice day all the same. But I don't think it was capable of winning. 203 pound won. Kevin Wadge won off peg 1 on Partridge, and second was in the corner opposite. So definitely the place to be, just with the stamp of fish on there. They are absolute colossuses on that one, whereas mine were all small fish. And what cost me as well is it's that willow fluff time, when all the willow fluff comes on the lake, and it looked like it snowed in my peg for the last couple of hours, which was a bit of a pain. It stopped me getting me rig in, but definitely didn't give me a chance of winning. There was no way I could have won on that. But a nice day all the same, and picked up a couple of quid, which kept me nice and confident to get my head back on the qualifiers, which now it is time to focus on very much golden reel. There's a lot of golden reel ones I'm going to fish, and I'm going to try and squeeze in 2 or 3 mavers before the end as well. But for me, it is well and truly, I'm happy, and it is game on again. Hopefully we'll be able to sneak in one more final before the summer's out.